The morning of June 6 didn't just bring with it a royal engagement, it brought a message. A message that echoed far beyond the rolling green fields of Wiltshire where it all took place. While at first glance it seemed like just another royal visit on the king's calendar, what unfolded was something far more powerful. In the stillness before the cameras clicked, before the reports were written, the tone had already been set. King Charles III wasn't merely fulfilling a duty, he was delivering a signal. A signal of strength, presence, and unwavering commitment, even as the shadows of illness and personal heartbreak linger quietly behind palace walls. At the heart of this story was a visit to Larkhill, home to the Royal Regiment of Artillery, one of the British Army's oldest and most distinguished units. And though royal engagements with the military are not uncommon, this one felt different. It carried a weight that could be felt by anyone paying attention. The king's presence that day, his participation, and the symbolic moments that unfolded, each told a chapter of a larger story. A story of resilience, of tradition, of a monarch asserting control not just over ceremony, but over perception. The palace, ever careful in its timing, released a set of official images just hours after the event. These weren't the usual smiling walkabouts. These photos radiated something else entirely. The king, standing tall in full military dress, surrounded by soldiers, families, and machinery of war, looked both timeless and timely. The underlying message? That even in a period of personal vulnerability, His Majesty remains deeply invested in the core institutions of the nation, and visibly so. But what made this visit truly historic was the role Charles now holds within this regiment. It marked his first appearance as Captain General of the Royal Regiment of Artillery, a prestigious military title that places the monarch directly within the fabric of the armed forces. This is not just a decorative position, it's a symbolic one, steeped in history. A visible reminder that the king is not only the figurehead of Britain, but also the living embodiment of its military heritage. And that symbolism came to life in a moment no one expected. In a dramatic and visually striking gesture, the king stepped forward and personally fired an L-118 light gun, a powerful piece of artillery designed for precision and impact. The very act was striking, not only because of the sheer physicality involved, but because of the man performing it. A king who, not long ago, revealed that he is undergoing treatment for cancer, now standing amid uniformed troops, pulling the trigger on a weapon that symbolizes power, readiness, and national defense. It wasn't just a photo op. It was a moment deliberately choreographed to project a specific image. A monarch still strong, still capable, still leading from the front. And it worked. The reaction was immediate. Across media platforms and social networks, images of the king in action dominated headlines. Commentators quickly labeled it a message of resilience, a symbol of continuity. And perhaps it was also something more personal, a reminder to the public and to the institution itself that Charles is still very much in control, still fulfilling the sacred promise made at his coronation. But what made the optics of this event even more poignant was what was happening elsewhere, in silence, in the space between headlines. Because while King Charles was reaffirming his leadership on the field, another story had quietly emerged, casting a long shadow over the royal family's internal dynamics. A report from the Daily Mail suggested that Prince Harry, Charles's youngest son, had recently approached Earl Spencer, his maternal uncle and brother of the late Princess Diana, to discuss the possibility of changing his royal surname. At first, it seemed too extraordinary to believe. But the deeper you look, the more you realize the emotional and institutional implications of such a move. For a prince born into the very heart of the monarchy, seeking to alter his surname isn't just a personal decision, it's a symbolic fracture. A potential severing of lineage, legacy, and identity. Why would Harry consider such a step? Some suggest it's about independence, a desire to build a new identity, far removed from the constraints of palace protocol. Others see it as an act of rebellion, a final move in a long series of efforts to distance himself and his family from the institution he once represented. But whatever the motivation, the emotional impact of such a decision, if true, would likely cut deep, especially for a father already carrying the emotional burden of separation from his son. The current royal surname, Windsor, adopted during World War I, carries with it more than a century of historical weight. It is more than a name, it is a symbol of unity, of continuity, of the monarchy's adaptability through times of upheaval. The addition of Mountbatten in later years, honoring Prince Philip's lineage, brought in another layer of identity. To walk away from that, to rename oneself, is to rewrite not just a name, but a history. For King Charles, whose reign is still in its early years and whose health is closely watched by the public, such reports can feel like tremors beneath the surface. Quiet but unsettling. And that's what made the visuals from Larkhill all the more significant. In contrast to private discord, here was a monarch engaging with soldiers, speaking with families, absorbing knowledge of modern warfare and military training. He wasn't hiding from public life, he was embracing it. He wasn't shying away from tradition, he was reinforcing it. Even the gift he received at the end of the visit carried deep meaning. A 105mm cartridge shell, engraved and symbolic, fired during the king's own coronation. A reminder that the military stands with the sovereign, even as other familial bonds grow strained. The juxtaposition could not have been more vivid. On one hand, you have a father receiving a token of loyalty and honor. On the other, a son reportedly considering removing himself from the very identity that once united them. And that's where the emotional core of this story lies. Because no matter how composed the photographs may be, no matter how powerful the moments of ceremony, the weight of personal estrangement remains. This is a royal family grappling not only with public expectation and institutional duty, but with private heartbreak. Yet King Charles, through this visit, sent a loud and clear response. He may be battling illness, he may be navigating family tension, but his presence at Larkhill was a declaration: the monarchy, under his leadership, remains steady. And in a time when stability often feels in short supply, that message was both timely and necessary. It was a performance of strength, not in the theatrical sense, but in the sense of emotional resolve. A demonstration that the crown continues, that tradition endures, and that the sovereign is still present, still active, and still committed. But behind the strong posture and ceremonial grandeur, one can't help but wonder, what is the cost of that composure? What remains unspoken between father and son? And how does a monarch balance the demands of state with the pull of paternal concern? These are the tensions that quietly underscore modern monarchy. And as King Charles continues to walk the line between duty and personal struggle, the eyes of the world remain fixed on every step. So now, we turn the question over to you. Do you see the king's appearance at Larkhill as a carefully orchestrated message of stability, or a genuine act of resolve during a time of personal trial? And what are your thoughts on the reports surrounding Prince Harry and the potential surname change? Is it a step too far, or a natural evolution for a man seeking to define himself outside the palace gates? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, please share your thoughts respectfully. These stories may involve royalty, but they touch on very human themes: identity, loyalty, legacy, and the bonds that hold families together, or drive them apart. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay informed with more thoughtful royal analysis, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.